coefficient. So this one's looking at lift coefficient, which is quite an important equation, and it tells you quite a lot about how an aircraft performs and what the main key factors affecting aircraft lifting performance and aircraft performance in general. So fixed wing is a good place to start because they're fairly straightforward, and if you're getting into sort of sizing, building your own sort of radio controlled aircraft, then fixed wing is a good place to sort of start to understand how lift works and aerodynamic works. The both helicopters and fixed wing aircraft both generate lift. So the both generate lift as an airfoil moves through the air. Fixed wing aircraft, the airfoil is produced by maintaining the forward speed, which if you didn't have that forward speed, the aircraft would stall and essentially follow the sky. So this speed you'll probably maybe heard of it, is called stall speed. So that's the speed that if you slow the aircraft down to that speed, it'll just not produce lift anymore, it'll stall. And it's obviously a speed you want to avoid. Most pilots want to avoid it and be aware of it and stay well away from sort of maintaining enough speed to do approachable stall speed. And part of their training is recognizing and being aware of their speed. Helicopters obviously are slightly different. They produce speed. They produce their lift by the wing, the rotor, spinning around. So that's why they can hover obviously in one place where their plane can't hover. So they can slow down because the rotor blade is moving through the air and it's generating its own speed as such, and it's keeping the helicopter is producing lift. It works in a similar way to a propeller. So a propeller produces lift in a similar way to a rotor blade or a rotor and a helicopter produces lift. So this picture here shows the main forces on a fixed wing aircraft. So you have lift, which obviously is maintaining the aircraft at a certain height, and then you have weight, which is the mass of the aircraft, and lift is opposing weight, and then you have thrust and drag. So your thrust is usually produced by a propeller, or your engine, if it's a jet engine, it's produced by that. And that's the four main forces, and it's sort of a typical thing you'll see in a physics exam or something. Last year in steady level flight, the four forces are in equilibrium. So in the cases of fixed and rotary, the lift coefficient can be used to calculate the size of the wings to produce the required lift. So that's true. So the lift, I'll sort of have some concluding points, but really the wing area is the main thing that you use to sort of size your lift and get the lift that you want. And this is the lift coefficient, so it's quite a straightforward equation. I've sort of split it up, and we've talked about here dynamic pressure, which is just like it involves your speed and the air density, and then you've got lift coefficient and you've got area, and you can see that the lift coefficient is known as a non-dimensional. This is something maybe I would touch on another separate video, but it's known as non-dimensional, and you can see that if you have dynamic pressure is obviously pressure, so it's in pascals or force per unit area, and then if you do a bit of evaluation, you'll see that lift coefficient is a force divided by area, which gives you pascals. So you can see that the units cancel out, and lift coefficient is essentially a non-dimensional number or constant. So it's just defining those. So CL is lift coefficient, S is area, wing area, Q is the dynamic pressure, and L is the lifting force, and the dynamic pressure then is a half rho V squared. And this equation, I think in the next slide, yes, so I'm going to cover it. This gives a good summary of how the aircraft performance. So if you can remember this equation, and you can nearly remember the main important factors of the aircraft and how it performs. So air density is obviously one that we have no control over. It depends on weather conditions, and if you're trained to be a pilot or you've spoken to pilots, you'll see that they have to do different performance estimates for each day, because engines perform differently, the aircraft performs differently. So if you're flying on a very hot, humid day, then you'll have a lower density, and they generally have a lot of performance calculations to work out, like especially if it's a fixed wing area, make sure that the runways, they've got enough runway, because if it's a very hot day and you're at high altitude and the aircraft's weighing a lot, then it'll struggle to get off the ground. The same with helicopters too. Certain days the helicopter won't be able to attain a certain hover. It won't be able to hover if it's too heavy and the day is not favourable. Whether other days, if it's a cold day with cold day at low altitude, then it'll be able to hover with a higher weight. So it varies. And the second one is obviously it's about low lift coefficient. So lift coefficient, you generally want it to be low, specifically in cruise. So anytime you would have it high would be when you're coming into land approach, and that's because you're generally reducing your speed so that you can touch down, and your landing run will be fairly short, and that's the only time you want a high lift coefficient. So you generally want your lift coefficient to be low. In cruise flight, that keeps your lift dependent drag, your vortex drag, which is something I'll touch on later on, fairly low. So it reduces your drag. So low lift coefficient reduces your drag. So really, from a design point of view, you're sizing the wing area, and that's your main thing. So you generally, aircraft are sized, so if they're designed to carry a certain weight, a certain speed or whatever, you'll generally adjust the wing area and pick the right wing area for that type of performance that you want. So this score gives you a typical lift coefficient, which is a good way. Like if you really want to understand different lift coefficients in different aircraft, it's a good way. So you can take a typical sort of books that you can get out there is like sort of Janes or something like that, and you can go and pick an aircraft and work out. You can obviously your density you can work out from an ISA chart or something like that, and you can calculate your density. So it's sort of showing you there are different densities, different lift coefficients for cruise conditions. So what sort of air transport and commercial are they're quite high, like military combat's down to 0.2, but that's a good summary. And if you were building an aircraft, you want to make sure, depending on what type of aircraft you want to build, you can sort of nearly build an aircraft from one of these sort of come up with a sort of a rough design from one of these books. If you look at your different performance in your wing areas and whatever. So it does show. It's also good. It'll show you in the second video. It'll show you actually how you calculate lift coefficient, based on these numbers, and how you would calculate how you can actually dust from lift coefficient. You can nearly, and if you know your weight and your speed and your lift coefficient, you can work out your wing area and more or less know have an early sort of design of a plane, depending on how complicated you want your aircraft to be. So, just as usual, these videos are all based on an earlier blog post I did, and hopefully it did help you understand lift coefficient and the importance of lift coefficient, particularly when you summarise it up here, and how lift coefficient it's a good way to memorize, and you can find out what is the main factors in, for instance, aircraft performance or helicopter performance in that manner. So future videos now, I'm sort of going to do a series of videos. So the future, I've done mathematics, so I'll probably do more mathematics, and then I'm going to do helicopters and RC helicopters, so they're going to kind of be related. The helicopter one was really more supposed to be around sort of pilot theory, but I'm not fully qualified as a flight instructor, so I'm not going to do them at this present time until I would become fully qualified, because I don't think that's a fair thing. But as an engineer, I think I'll just teach general helicopter theory and helicopter analysis in these videos, and then the last one was free CAD and open. I was hoping that these videos would be more practical and look at actually practically building stuff, and be of some help to people. So if there's one or more of these topics you're specifically interested in, please let me know. Please, whichever one you find is most helpful, and which ones I should concentrate most of my efforts on, that would be helpful. So that's just the references then. So the blog article that's the wrong blog article. It's actually 1 on its lift coefficient, and then thermodynamics is the thing. So it's actually blog article number 1, and it's lift coefficient. That's an earlier video. Sorry about that. It should be number 1, and it should be lift coefficient. But if it's the first. If you put it, if you go onto my website, you can find content, and you'll find out that's the blog article. And then the second one is the fundamental of aerodynamics. So that's just a general textbook on aerodynamics, which is quite useful. Okay, thank you. Thanks for watching, and hope you find this video useful.